Capsule Corp is real. Alright everyone, so Capsule Corp is real! Capsule Corp is real. That's a weird thing to say, I'm not gonna lie to you. So, Capsule Corp is actually owned by, this guy right here. This guy right here who is, Akio Iyoku. He is now the, I wouldn't say he's the owner, but he's the director of Capsule Corp now. So today's news is about the future of Dragon Ball games, anime, and manga. Now, what I say in this video is more so just my understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. I wouldn't necessarily say that, you know, everything I say here is facts 100%, because there is no facts right now. All we can do is determine through interviews, and translations, to what is possibly coming in the future. So, going forward, just remember, I'm not insider. I'm seeing some news. I'm seeing some interviews, some articles, and I'm just showing them to you. So the Dragon Ball anime, games, and manga are now split. Now it is Shueshei who has sole proprietary rights right now with the manga. They are in control of the manga. They're the ones they're going forward with the manga at all points of time. That's where Toyotaro is at. Now, Akira Toriyama obviously will have his ins and outs of both of these studios. Akira Toriyama is the creator of Dragon Ball, but he doesn't necessarily own Dragon Ball anymore. I mean, he does and doesn't. It's a weird... when it comes down to IP rights and rules and everything, anime and manga have always had a very weird controlling matter. I mean, it's always been like that. So, Shueshei now controls and monitors the manga solely, while Capsule Corp will be in charge of the anime and video game related media for the next 10 years. Yes, for the next decade. Though it is unknown if that will stay the same after the next decade or so. At the time of this recording, I don't know. But the next 10 years is specified in the interviews that we're going to be going through here. So let's kind of go back. Let's take a trip down memory lane and go over to September of 2023. So in September of 2023, there was the announcement that Akio was separating himself from Shueshei. Now this was before Daima was announced. So Daima was announced, I believe, at the end of October and in beginning of November. This was announced in September that he was separating from Shueshei. They were in like conversations to controversy to be splitting up the IP. He was making his own thing, but as it comes to the new year, he is the corporation is open. Capsule Corporation Tokyo. It is now a thing, and he is in charge of it. So at the time, we had no idea what was happening. They didn't give us any specifics. There was nothing we could really understand. Obviously online it was very all over the place on whether or not it was a good thing or if it was a battle thing, it was a good or bad thing. But moving on to that, I will say that he was the executive producer. So I mean, he's not a nobody. He does love Dragon Ball, obviously. He does. And through part of the interviews, you can feel that love for Dragon Ball. It's just, I'm not really sure, personally, I'm not really sure it's the direction we want to see. But anyways, so as of today, Akio Iyoka is now the president of Capsule Corporation Tokyo and is the executive producer of Dragon Ball. He'll continue to produce anime series, movies, games over the next decade, the next 10 years specifically. So thank you, Dragon Ball Super Hype, for announcing that. And then Super Chronicles has a translated the article that was from Sailor Jupiter hashtag. I'm not gonna read through all of this. I'm not gonna make you sit through all of it. I'm gonna give you some points, some hotkey points out of this. You can depict it as you so wish. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can go and look at the Super Chronicles post to yourself and go ahead and read about it. So the first main point I would like to throw out is that he went over a time when Dragon Ball was down in craze. Like, it wasn't a huge thing. There was a time when Dragon Ball craze, which had spread around the world over the past 40 years, had died down. When I became the head of Shueshei's Dragon Ball room in 2016, I could not visualize what was really happening 78 years ago. I went to a huge event in Brazil. I was told that Japanese anime were popular in South America, but there was a discrepancy. What I was told, the feedback of the fans was weak. So I mean, Brazil, I feel is probably not the biggest like Dragon Ball country thing. I feel like Dragon Ball is known worldwide at this point, and it's much different from almost a decade ago now. I mean, talking about 78 years ago is absolutely mad when it comes to this day and age. This day and age, I mean, everybody knows about Dragon Ball. Online connectivity is just everywhere. You could be in the weirdest corner of the earth, and I'm sure there could be a Dragon Ball fan underneath there. You just don't know. I don't feel like one area of the planet is a good way to say Dragon Ball has died down. I'm pretty sure after Battle of Gods coming back out to the world, that Dragon Ball just blew up. And it stayed blown up pretty much the entire time, because then right after Battle of Gods, we had Resurrection of F. After Resurrection of F, we had the Super manga coming in. After the Super manga and Super anime, we had Dragon Ball Broly. And I mean, fast forward a little bit to now after the manga push, and we're at Superhero. And I feel like Superhero did very well. I think there's been a constant flow, personally, of Dragon Ball. And I don't think it's really died down, per se. If it's died down, the only reason the Dragon Ball hype has died down at all across the world in general is because they haven't continued the anime. And I feel like that's an oversight. Another key point I would like to point out is he felt the concern that Dragon Ball had not been expanded worldwide. I disagree. Originally, we didn't see the strength and diffusion power of the work. We need to take a closer look at this, and if we can't do more. We are not looking for a one-size-fits-all approach, but rather we are looking for events such as the Dragon Ball World Championships, the expansion of the games, creating facilities, and anything else that can do. We will work on them in parallel. So the good news about this information is that means that he is completely and willing to work with the Dragon Ball games. He's completely willing to try and push in all different avenues of Dragon Ball, which is a great thing to think about, you know. But to me seeing this, it makes me think he's trying to, like, Marvelize it. And while I think that could be good, I don't feel like Marvelizing Dragon Ball is the best suit. And I'll get to that in just a minute, but this is a fan mock-up that was made when Broly came out. It's very old. As you can see, the first date was like 2019. This was made a long time ago. We're way past this, obviously. This isn't real. But if every single one of these things came out, they'd be hype. They'd be super hype. I would love to see a hit movie. I would love to see a Yamoshi. Like, you know, I'd love to see that detail into the worlds. And then, you know, Bardock and Epilogue, Oob, Roshi. I would love to see all of these things. They'd be amazing. But my issue comes down to a point of if they start animating all of these in a different way, if any of these are real-life adaptions, which would just be not good, I feel like they would fall off pretty hard. So the other issue is like this turns into its own kind of entity thing. Let's go back to some of these. So, the next part of the interview is Dragon Ball Daima, which will be released in fall 2024. We are taking on the challenge of creating an anime series with a completely original story, and I cannot emphasize enough of that wording there. Original story. We are creating an anime series with a completely original story. To me, that implies that this is not canon, that Daima is literally its own separate thing, and that's it. That's fine. That's fine for me right now, because it's the 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball this year. I mean, it's a hype year for anime and manga. I'm stoked for it. But if this is the approach they're going forward with the anime, fans are not going to be happy. The fans are not going to be happy. We've been waiting for Moro and Granola for a while now, and if they don't animate that, I think they're going to see a very negative lashing back. But this is, like I said, this is all just based off of a random interview. Whether or not they're actually doing any of this, we don't know. We don't know what's actually happening. We can only just dissect the interview and hope that we're not overanalyzing these key words. Another thing he goes into is the industry is over-competitive. Is it tough to see the competition among anime due to the emergence of streaming sites, etc.? Competition has become excessive. We must not create a situation where a manga becomes anime, and when the anime is over, the content ends as is. Now, before I continue the rest of this, that is a very bad thing to see, because that means that he doesn't want to continue the anime. He doesn't want an end to the anime, which to me means that he could not continue Moro or Granola. But in a more positive sense, it means he could continue Moro and Granola, do it in his own light, in his own different way, and then keep pushing past it in a different direction than the manga does. Now, that's obviously, a good and a bad thing, because then you have to take into consideration of which is truly canon anymore, because the manga is primarily focused on by Toyotaro. Toyotaro is the successor to Akira Toriyama. At that point, you have to really think what is actually canon, if you care about the canon. If you're just a Dragon Ball fan and you'll take any type of Dragon Ball food to eat up, then, it's irrelevant. But if you care about the canonized universe of Dragon Ball itself, you have to start thinking what is going to be in the canon and what doesn't matter anymore as far as story goes. Because if the actual canon stays with the manga and does not push forward with any anime or video games, then that would imply that the anime and movies and games with their own separate stories are cool, but they effectively all become what-ifs. I mean, we all still love all the old Dragon Ball Z movies and so forth, but at the end of the day, we all know that they're not canon. We can kind of effectively fit them somewhere in the timelines, but they obviously don't actually match up. They were just there to be a movie. And I think that's what I'm most afraid of, is that he's going to be making anime content finally that we want, but it's not going to be canon. And that's what I'm worried about, is like him creating this quote-unquote separate universe. We're going to be getting into diverging universes like it's a Marvel or a DC thing, where it's like you have Earth 22 and I mean, we already have a crazy timeline with Trunks and so forth, so we don't need more of it. The ideal situation is to create a situation where the average viewer sees the content. We are in a cycle of consumption. That is very true. And in some aspects, the cycle is becoming short-lived. That is, it's not some aspects, it's all aspects. I don't think it's good at all to have a boom that builds up and then burns down. That only burns down if you don't keep pushing it, which they decided not to keep pushing the anime. If they had continued to push the anime, it wouldn't burn down at all, which can be a factor in the content not lasting long. That's a really tough thing to go over. Personally speaking, I would definitely say that he's blaming the burn down on social media, is what this, to me, when I'm reading this, that's what that looks like, that he's blaming the burnout on Dragon Ball on social media. It's not. The burnout is always based on the company. It's based on how they support their IP and so forth. Marvel pushed too hard, and now Marvel's kind of like burned out a lot. Like, they just have too much all at once. Rather than consistent, it's just too much all at once. But moving on to the next interview that we have here. This one only has a couple key points. Otherwise, most of this is just yammering on about the market value and the potential growth of a lot of areas that could be going into Dragon Ball. One key point here. For the 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball 2024, the series will be revived as a completely new anime. The immortal Son Goku chose the United States, not his home country of Japan, as the place to announce his return to the world. So, I'm not sure if this is just Daima. I don't know if Daima is now turning into its own original series. I don't know if that means that they plan to announce it worldwide, like a new anime. This could be the confirmation of a new anime coming right after Daima, or Daima is the new anime. But Moro and Granola, I'm not 100% sure. I would say is next. And then the challenge is to make the leap to the next generation's industry many of the Japanese people grew up with. So basically what he's saying is that he wants to grow the Dragon Ball IP. He wants to spread it out. He wants it to be consistent. And he wants to make a new universe for the next generation to grow up into. So it's entirely potentially possible with this idea right here that we could be seeing a remake of Dragon Ball. A remake is very likely, I would say. I would say a remake of the anime is very highly possible. Whether or not they'll start with Dragon Ball or if they'll start with Dragon Ball Z, I don't know. It really just all depends. Like I said, I will leave a description. I will leave a links in the description where you can go read these yourself. You can depict them yourself. Personally, I see this guy as that he loves Dragon Ball. He's opened up a company called CAPSULE Corporation. He wants the whole world to see Dragon Ball all in its own right, and I love that. And I look forward to seeing what he's going to do to combine everything of movies and anime and video games. He specified the video games, which is great to hear because that means we're going to hear more at the Battle Hour, which will be later this month. So yeah, I mean, honestly, overall, like, even if you want to take this at the most pessimistic way possible, what you do get to know today is that there is a plan for the next 10 years worth of Dragon Ball, and it's going to be consistent. We will get anime, we will get new animes, we will get new games, we'll get new events, the manga is going to keep going. I mean, this is all great news. This is all great news. What's going to happen, we don't know yet. But anyways, guys, please let me know down in the comments below, what do you think we are going to get? Are we going to get, like, a whole freaking... Are we getting a Marvelized Dragon Ball right now? Or are we just over-speculating thing? Are we just getting a new Dragon Ball? Who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day and a good night.